Just when you thought it couldn't get any messier, explosive new allegations have emerged. Music mogul Diddy is now accused of witness tampering in an ongoing federal investigation, and Pam Bondi, the former Florida Attorney General, isn't staying silent. In a shocking turn, she drops evidence that could turn the whole case on its head. Stay tuned as we break it all down, chapter by chapter. The morning headlines were unlike any the industry had seen in years. Diddy accused of witness tampering, blared across the homepage of TMZ, their red and white logo flashing beneath a grainy black and white still from what looked like surveillance footage. It had taken exactly 13 minutes for the #Diddy to climb to the top of XS trending topics, and 30 more for every network from MSNBC to the Shade Room to jump in with their own takes. At 8:47 a.m., a spokesperson from the U.S. Attorney's Office in the Southern District of New York made the formal announcement. New federal charges had been filed against Sean Combs, also known as Diddy. Among them, a grave and rare accusation, attempted witness tampering in an ongoing federal investigation that already had the music mogul under a microscope. The charges, part of a sealed grand jury indictment, hinted at a broader web of obstruction, intimidation, and cover-up efforts allegedly initiated to derail key testimonies. Though no names were released publicly at first, reporters knew where to dig. Just 1 hour later, a redacted court filing leaked to TMZ contained enough clues to ignite a frenzy. Among the documents, an unnamed high-profile individual had been flagged as a potential retaliatory target, a person with long-standing legal credentials and active testimony in an adjacent but relevant matter. All signs pointed to former Florida Attorney General Pam Bondi. Bondi, known for her sharp cross-examinations and unrelenting courtroom presence, had re-entered the spotlight just weeks prior, rumored to be on a confidential witness list in connection with sealed financial settlements involving major entertainment figures. While she hadn't spoken publicly about her involvement, several sources close to the investigation confirmed she'd been subpoenaed quietly in late April. The timing of the leak felt deliberate. Social media went into overdrive. Armchair investigators dissected every clue from the redacted documents. TikTok sleuths posted videos overlaying Bondi's speeches with eerie music and captions like "She knew, and now they know she knows." Redditors on RO Conspiracy mapped out timelines, drawing speculative links between Bondi, Combs, and a mysterious 2015 settlement that had long since vanished from the public record. It wasn't long before screenshots surfaced of a text allegedly sent from an encrypted burner phone. "Handle Bondi. She talks, we fall." The message, unverified but widely circulated, fueled rampant speculation that Diddy or someone close to him had made direct or indirect efforts to silence her. CNN was first to confirm that Bondi had retreated from public view and was currently under increased federal protection. Her legal team, when reached for comment, gave a single response: Ms. Bondi is cooperating fully with federal authorities. She will not be intimidated. As afternoon rolled in, things escalated further. NBC received exclusive access to a confidential security bulletin issued by the Department of Justice, warning of active interference attempts on key witnesses associated with multiple entertainment-linked investigations. The bulletin didn't name Diddy, but it didn't need to. News anchors recited the words like gospel: entertainment-linked. Multiple investigations. Witness protection activated. The implications were clear. This wasn't just about one man anymore. It was about a network. A system. At 3:12 p.m., Pam Bondi's name officially appeared in an unsealed legal brief filed in federal court. The document, marked Urgent Motion for Protective Measures, stated that Ms. Bondi had been subject to sustained and indirect intimidation efforts by individuals connected to the accused. It listed surveillance near her home, an anonymous email with redacted threats, and an in-person tail spotted by her private security team on 2 separate occasions. The brief ended with a chilling line: "The witness has been marked." By 5 p.m., Bondi's face was everywhere. Not because she'd spoken, but because she hadn't. News segments replayed her most iconic courtroom moments. Old debates, archived interviews, even an awkward moment with Anderson Cooper on CNN where she'd once said, "I don't scare easy, Anderson. Never have." Now, everyone was asking, was she scared now? Legal analysts debated whether the tampering charge would stick. Some said it was a reach, a move designed to shake the tree and see what else fell. Others, especially those familiar with the Southern District's aggressive tactics, argued it was the opening shot in a larger takedown operation. They wouldn't throw this charge unless they had at least one cooperating witness, one former prosecutor said on MSNBC. And if they've got one, they've probably got more. As dusk settled over Miami, a black SUV was seen pulling into a secure federal complex. Sources claimed Bondi was inside, preparing to submit additional materials related to the case. The FBI, ever cautious, offered no comment, though one internal memo, leaked to Politico, revealed agents had conducted 3 separate interviews with Bondi in the past week alone. Outside the courthouse, a lone protester held up a sign, "Protect the witness." No one knew yet what Bondi had seen, or what she was willing to say. But one thing was clear: the gloves were off. By midnight, 2 more reports had surfaced. One claimed that a second high-profile witness had gone into hiding. The other? A rumor that Bondi was preparing to go public with her own evidence. Something concrete. Something devastating. And somewhere, perhaps watching the news unfold from a penthouse far removed from the chaos, Diddy was undoubtedly being advised to lawyer up harder than ever before. Because the allegation had broken. And the storm was just beginning. By the time the sun rose over Washington, D.C., the narrative had shifted again. What had begun with whispers of intimidation and tampering now exploded into full-blown chaos, thanks to an anonymous email that hit the inboxes of every major media outlet, congressional office, and federal watchdog group in the country. The subject line was blunt. Proof of tampering. They know who. The sender's email was a burner. justice0rtruth@protonmail.com. Attached were a series of heavily encrypted files, including PDFs of internal legal memos, screenshots of messages between anonymous parties, and metadata from secure chat apps showing timestamps, locations, and file-sharing activity. But one folder stood out above the rest. It was labeled Bondi_chain. By 7:12 a.m., the documents were already in the hands of BuzzFeed News, The Intercept, and the New York Times. Though few of the outlets released full contents immediately, whispers of their authenticity tore through the press like wildfire. Within hours, digital forensics experts, some working publicly on Twitter, others hired quietly by law firms, began piecing together the material. The most damning evidence appeared to be a thread of screenshots from an encrypted messaging platform known only to certain corporate players and celebrities, an app designed for total data destruction, typically used to discuss confidential contract clauses, NDAs, and sensitive financial terms. In one exchange dated 2 days before Pam Bondi was scheduled to testify, a message was sent from an account labeled SC001, a moniker many now believed referred to Sean Combs himself. The message read, "She needs to be reminded who funded that conference in 15. Leverage the old material. If she flips, we all go down." The reply came swiftly, from an account labeled GhostMud. "Already in motion. She's being watched. Signal if she cracks." The context was damning. The message's metadata placed it somewhere in Bel Air. The recipient's device pinged from South Beach, just blocks away from Bondi's temporary housing. The question wasn't just if Diddy had tried to tamper with a witness, it was now how far the operation went, and who else was involved. The documents also contained a short word file titled Operational Notes, Phoenix. The notes described surveillance operations in vague terms: primary location visual lock, subject movement consistent with target behavior, and no verbal engagement unless greenlit. No names, but insiders understood the language instantly. These were phrases pulled directly from surveillance field manuals. This wasn't fan gossip. This was military-grade planning. Meanwhile, the person responsible for the leak remained a complete mystery. The only public trace came from a now-deleted post on a dark web forum known for whistleblower communication. "You silence her. You silence all of us. I won't let it happen again. This is my line in the sand." The post was signed J33 Omega. Authorities scrambled to identify the source. The FBI, NSA, and even Interpol were pinged with requests to help trace the IP origin, but every trail led to false nodes, black holes, or masked locations routed through Finland, Singapore, and Venezuela. The whistleblower was either a genius or someone backed by serious digital infrastructure. The media dubbed the mysterious leaker the Omega Source. And with Bondi's name attached to the files, public interest skyrocketed. Inside federal offices, damage control kicked into overdrive. Bondi's legal team issued a rare statement mid-morning. Ms. Bondi is aware of the material circulating and is working in partnership with federal agents to verify its authenticity. She will not be intimidated into silence. That same afternoon, Diddy's team launched a counterstrike. His legal representation filed a cease-and-desist notice to 8 media outlets that had acknowledged receipt of the documents, claiming defamation, unlawful possession of stolen material, and digital conspiracy. But legal experts were quick to point out, In cases involving potential federal obstruction, the First Amendment protections for media often trump gag attempts.
Still, a few outlets hesitated.
CNN chose not to run the story, citing incomplete authentication. Fox News hinted the leak was politically motivated.
But online platforms had no such hesitation.
Reddit forums, Discord servers, and Telegram channels dissected the leak in real time. One TikToker went viral after posting a 3-part breakdown titled, "The Messages Diddy Didn't Want You to See." By nightfall, federal investigators held a press conference. While tight-lipped on specifics, their tone was unmistakable.
"We have received newly surfaced material.
At this time, we are treating the source as credible and investigating all implications of obstruction and witness tampering.
No one is above the law."
Not one person. As pressure mounted, another shocking twist occurred. An unnamed tech consultant in Atlanta reached out to a local journalist, claiming to have worked on a data purge request months ago tied to a shell company later revealed to have links to Combs Global Holdings. The consultant stated that a VIP client had paid double the going rate for absolute erasure of encrypted backup drives, and that Bondi's name had appeared in a folder title. Within 48 hours, the consultant disappeared.
His apartment was abandoned. Phone disconnected.
Speculation was no longer about guilt, it was about who would flip next. Meanwhile, Bondi herself remained silent. But her silence felt strategic, composed,
prepared.
The kind of calm that comes before someone walks into a courtroom with a smoking gun in hand. Whispers circulated that she had even more damning recordings. A folder, perhaps. Something yet unreleased.
The Omega source, it seemed, was only the beginning. And the world was now watching.
At 9:03 a.m. on a humid Friday morning, every major outlet received an encrypted press release from Pam Bondi's legal team.
The subject line was sharp and measured.
Official statement and supporting material, Ms. Pamela Bondi. Attached was a zip folder marked FB Directive 1.
Within it were 3 items.
A 1-minute audio file labeled call_0426.wav. A PDF titled Testimony Context Document, unredacted.
A short message from Bondi herself.
I had hoped the legal process would unfold without needing this.
But pressure has been applied in ways the public deserves to know. I will not be coerced. The storm that followed was immediate, and unlike anything that had come before.
The audio file was uploaded to a secure site run by Bondi's attorneys and streamed nearly 2 million times in its first hour.
In it, Bondi's voice is calm but resolute.
She is speaking to a man whose voice has not yet been officially identified, but internet sleuths were already calling him the enforcer.
"You're asking me to reconsider facts."
"I don't reconsider facts," Bondi says firmly. The man responds in a low tone, carefully measured. "Let's not make this harder than it needs to be.
People forget things all the time. They redact. They omit." There's a pause. Then Bondi replies,
"Is that a threat?"
And then, dead air. No direct threat. No name. But the tone?
The implications?
As chilling as a confession.
The accompanying PDF provided additional context. It included an annotated breakdown of her intended testimony, complete with highlighted segments referencing offshore transfers, shell companies, and a high-value settlement orchestrated under duress. One page bore the heading, Confidential, Combs Legal Settlement, 2015. Beneath it, a list of initials, some recognizable, others blacked out. But it was the final piece that shook investigators most. Bondi had uploaded a secure Dropbox folder, its contents visible only to the FBI and a select federal oversight panel. The public never saw the files directly, but credible sources within the Bureau confirmed their contents included unedited video footage of a meeting in a Manhattan hotel room, copies of non-disclosure agreements signed under pseudonyms, a time-stamped photograph showing Diddy in the background of a meeting once claimed he'd never attended. And then came the handwritten note. Found by her private security team taped inside a package left on her doorstep in Tampa, the note was scribbled in rushed, slanted handwriting.
It read, "You don't want to do this.
You really don't."
No signature. No envelope. No tracking.
But it was chillingly similar to the language heard in the leaked call. Forensic analysts confirmed that the paper bore traces of synthetic oil, a kind used primarily in firearm maintenance, and faint DNA that matched an unidentified male already catalogued in a separate federal database. Bondi's team didn't flinch. In a rare on-camera appearance later that day, Bondi stood at a podium outside the federal courthouse in Miami, flanked by 2 U.S. Marshals.
Her voice was calm. Her tone was steady. "I want to make something absolutely clear," she said. "I have not been deterred. I have not been silenced. I have cooperated with the Department of Justice fully and without compromise.
And if those who believe otherwise think I will fold under pressure, they are about to be very disappointed."
Reporters bombarded her with questions.
Who was on the call? Is the FBI protecting you? Are you naming names?
She didn't answer any of them.
She stepped away, escorted by security into a black government SUV. But social media needed no confirmation. #Bondi bombshell trended worldwide within the hour. Memes flooded the internet. Bondi as Wonder Woman, Bondi in courtroom armor, Bondi with duct tape over her mouth, caption still speaking. Inside the Department of Justice, a meeting was called behind closed doors. Investigators who had treated Bondi as a supporting witness now reconsidered her as a central one. One prosecutor reportedly stated, "If even half of what she has is verifiable, this case goes nuclear." Diddy's legal camp scrambled. A hastily convened press conference issued the following. Mr. Combs has never attempted to influence any witness. The released material is contextually misleading and legally dubious. We will be pursuing all available remedies under the law. But by then, it was too late. Leaks began seeping from every corner of the justice system. Former interns, paralegals, even 2 courthouse guards. Everyone had a tip. Everyone had a piece. And Bondi had lit the fuse. Journalists unearthed a previously unknown Cayman Island holding company, linked to shell transactions referenced in Bondi's PDF. One investigative reporter hinted at a second female witness connected to the same 2015 settlement. And a former entertainment lawyer anonymously confirmed Bondi's note was nearly identical to a threat they'd received years prior, also while preparing for testimony. By nightfall, something remarkable happened. The FBI released a public statement, not about guilt, not about charges, but about Bondi. Ms. Pamela Bondi has provided material and cooperation that has proven credible, actionable, and vital to the integrity of this investigation. She is under active protective oversight. All threats against her are being investigated as federal crimes.
It was unprecedented.
Never before had the Bureau publicly acknowledged the significance of an individual witness in such clear terms. Pam Bondi didn't just come forward. She came armed, with receipts, recordings, and resolve. Her bombshell wasn't just one leak or one document.
It was a chain reaction.
A lit match dropped into a room full of dry powder.
And the explosion had only just begun.
The mood in Sean Combs' inner circle had shifted from defiant swagger to strategic desperation. As the third day of Bondi's bombshell revelations dominated headlines, his legal and PR teams moved into what insiders described as containment mode. The task was no longer to deny, but to delay, deflect, and discredit. At 7:48 a.m., Diddy's lead attorney, Lawrence Edelstein, a sharp, immaculately dressed litigator known for keeping Fortune 500 execs out of prison, filed an emergency injunction in the U.S. District Court. The motion sought to suppress all audio and digital evidence released by Bondi, claiming it was unlawfully obtained, materially prejudicial, and likely to taint any potential jury pool. The 47-page filing cited a mix of legal precedent and vague constitutional protections, but the heart of the motion hinged on 2 key claims. That Bondi's audio recording was acquired without the full consent of both parties, thus violating Florida's 2-party consent wiretapping laws. That the Dropbox link she shared with federal investigators created a chain of public distribution, thereby compromising the investigation. But the motion did something else too. It named Pam Bondi, directly and repeatedly. No more vague references to a former government official.
This was now personal. Public.
The motion's footnotes went even further. One reference suggested Bondi had ongoing political ambitions that benefit from media exposure, hinting her motives were self-serving. Another described her as a media-savvy former prosecutor known for courtroom theatrics. Translation: character assassination in full swing. Simultaneously, Diddy's PR machine launched a carefully crafted media blitz. Major publications received embargoed interviews, pre-cleared talking points, and glossy press packets filled with quotes from friends, business partners, and even a few reluctant celebrities. One headline from Billboard read, "Insiders say Diddy is the real victim of a coordinated smear campaign." His longtime associate, producer TLOC, appeared on a podcast claiming,
"The man's built an empire.
You think he got time to chase down some lawyer from Florida?
This is political, man. It's orchestrated."
Another tactic emerged: silence the enablers. Adelstein's firm sent legal notices to media outlets that had published or referenced the Dropbox contents, threatening defamation lawsuits and injunctive relief. The team's goal was simple: stall long enough for the motion to seal the evidence permanently. But they underestimated public momentum. Civil rights groups, who had been largely silent up to this point, began issuing statements calling for complete transparency. The American Civil Liberties Union tweeted, "No one should have the power to silence a witness, especially when the stakes involve the abuse of influence and wealth. We stand with truth." The ACLU wasn't alone. Legal watchdog organizations, including the National Association of Prosecuting Attorneys, urged the court to deny the injunction on the grounds that evidence of witness tampering is inherently in the public interest. A petition titled "Let Bondi Testify" garnered over 250,000 signatures in 24 hours. Still, behind the scenes, Diddy's team pushed harder. They submitted a sealed brief to the court, requesting that all future filings in the case, whether from Bondi, the DOJ, or any third party, be sealed indefinitely due to reputational harm and business losses. The motion stated, "The potential for commercial devastation due to unverified, unproven, and inflammatory claims outweighs any speculative benefit from public access." That same day, a second filing appeared, this one targeting Bondi personally. The brief accused her of violating ethical codes, breaching confidentiality clauses in prior settlements, and knowingly releasing prejudicial materials to the press while under protective status. It called for the court to consider sanctions against her and referred to her conduct as recklessly destabilizing to the integrity of the judicial process. In response, Bondi's attorney, Marissa Delgado, issued a scorching rebuttal outside the courthouse. "My client did not leak these materials to the press. She cooperated with law enforcement and followed every procedure required of a protected witness. If Mr. Combs believes her testimony to be prejudicial, perhaps he should reflect on why that might be the case." But Diddy's team wasn't finished. At 4:36 p.m., his lawyers filed a third motion, this time to initiate a gag order. It would prevent all parties, including Bondi, from speaking to the media or publishing case-related material on any platform. They argued that the ongoing media circus had rendered a fair trial impossible. The judge, known for her strict courtroom etiquette and deep respect for First Amendment protections, did not issue an immediate ruling. Instead, she summoned all parties to a closed-door emergency hearing. Reporters swarmed the courthouse. Speculation ran wild. Inside sources claimed the judge was visibly unimpressed with the framing of the injunction and asked pointed questions about the legal basis of suppressing whistleblower evidence. Outside, civil rights groups staged a peaceful protest. Dozens held up signs reading, "Truth isn't defamation. Money can't gag justice." As the day drew to a close, Diddy's empire began to show visible cracks. One of his brand partners, a major global fashion label, issued a quiet statement reviewing our association with Mr. Combs. A liquor distributor followed suit, halting promotional campaigns indefinitely. Stock in a tech company where he held advisory status dropped 14% after rumors swirled of internal board discussions. But inside the mansion in Star Island, Diddy remained insulated, surrounded by lawyers, bodyguards, and advisors. Insiders described him as calm, focused, but furious. He reportedly said to a confidant, "They want to make an example out of me. I've been targeted before. This time, they won't win." Still, one detail unsettled even his closest staff. That morning, shortly before the emergency injunction was filed, one of Diddy's legal assistants had received a plain white envelope. No return address. No postage. Hand-delivered. Inside, a single flash drive. Written on the label, "You should have let her speak." It started with a leak, again. But this time, it wasn't a document or an anonymous statement. It was a video. At 10:03 a.m., a short, grainy clip surfaced on an encrypted video-sharing forum frequented by journalists, whistleblowers, and cybersecurity experts. The title read simply, "Garage. March 22nd. Miami." The footage, captured from a fixed-angle CCTV camera, showed a dimly lit underground parking structure in downtown Miami. In the video, a blacked-out SUV pulled into the far corner of the garage. A man in a dark hoodie stepped out. Seconds later, a second vehicle, smaller, silver, unmarked, pulled into the adjacent space. Its driver, partially obscured by shadows, opened the passenger side door and sat motionless for a moment before stepping out. At first glance, it looked like any other mundane meeting. But then the stills started circulating. Enhanced and color-adjusted by online forensic analysts, the figures in the video were quickly matched to facial profiles. The hooded man bore a striking resemblance to Raymond Ellis, a longtime associate and former security chief within Diddy's inner circle, known to have handled business when quiet conversations were needed. The second figure, after careful frame-by-frame analysis, appeared to be Nathan Reyes, a key witness expected to corroborate Bondi's sealed testimony. The context was explosive. The two men exchanged something, likely a manila folder or envelope, before shaking hands and parting ways. No words could be heard, but the body language was telling. Reyes appeared tense. Ellis kept looking over his shoulder.
It wasn't casual. It was clinical.
And the date? March 22nd. Just days before Bondi was reportedly approached with pressure to redact her testimony. Bondi's private investigator, Michelle Hanford, a retired DEA analyst turned independent operator, immediately confirmed the location matched one of the surveillance anomalies flagged weeks ago. Hanford had documented unusual vehicular activity around the parking structure near Reyes' condo but had been unable to confirm the participants, until now. What made the footage even more damning was what came next. An independent forensic team ran audio enhancement algorithms on the video, despite the heavy interference. Initially, nothing emerged. But a secondary channel in the recording picked up faint background audio, likely from an adjacent stairwell or ventilation shaft. What they found was partial, but significant. Not testify the way she wants, you'll be taken care of. Just make sure the names don't come out. We've covered this before. Same playbook. Even with voice distortions and digital noise, the implication was clear: witness tampering in progress. The footage was submitted anonymously to a federal prosecutor's office in the Southern District. And this time, the leak didn't just go viral, it triggered a subpoena. Within hours, prosecutors requested access to the full security archive of the garage, covering a 2-week window. They also submitted a motion to compel Reyes to appear before a federal grand jury. Meanwhile, Diddy's legal team went into panic mode. They issued a statement challenging the validity of the video, claiming it was selectively edited and illegally obtained. They suggested it was part of a larger campaign of digital defamation orchestrated by Bondi and her allies.
But Reyes' silence was the loudest response.
Media outlets began reporting that Reyes had missed a scheduled closed-door deposition. When reached by phone, his attorney simply said, "No comment." Court documents later revealed he had requested emergency protective status, citing credible threats to his safety following a sudden increase in online harassment and surveillance. Back in Miami, Bondi was watching closely. In a private meeting with federal agents, she reportedly confirmed that Reyes was one of 3 individuals who had approached her after her subpoena, claiming things were happening behind the scenes and warning her to be careful who she trusted. Her recollection of those conversations now aligned disturbingly well with what the surveillance audio seemed to imply. To bolster their case, Bondi's team released an affidavit from a building manager near the garage. The manager testified that a man resembling Ellis had been seen entering the premises twice in March, always parking in the same secluded bay, always staying no more than 15 minutes. Security logs confirmed these entries, and the timestamps matched the CCTV footage almost perfectly.
Then came the real hammer blow.
One of Bondi's forensic consultants decrypted a timestamped metadata file embedded in the original video. It linked the footage upload back to a MAC address registered to an out-of-use recording studio once owned by Combs Global Holdings. The building had changed hands months earlier, but its digital signature was still traceable. That connection, no matter how tenuous, suggested someone inside Diddy's former business infrastructure had leaked the footage. Was it another whistleblower? Was it someone flipping under pressure? Or was the Omega source still out there, watching?
Cable news went wall-to-wall.
Every network ran segments featuring grainy slow-motion frames of the garage meeting, with pundits speculating on what was passed between the men. Even Saturday Night Live got involved, parodying the footage in a cold-open skit titled Witness Protection, Hip-Hop Edition. But inside the U.S. Attorney's Office, things were moving at a very different pace. An official request was filed to classify the footage as material evidence in the obstruction case. The Justice Department announced the formation of a supplementary task force, including specialists from cybercrime, financial forensics, and interstate coercion units. For the first time since the scandal erupted, multiple agencies were now coordinating under a shared directive.
Unravel the network. Follow the trail. Protect the witnesses.
By midnight, a fresh document leaked, this time from inside the courthouse itself.
A draft subpoena. 3 names listed.
One of them, Raymond Ellis.
The second, Nathan Reyes. The third was redacted. Speculation soared. Was the third name another celebrity? A business partner?
A co-conspirator? For Bondi, the release of the surveillance footage was vindication. She had insisted there were connections beneath the surface, interactions, influences, whispers in dark corners. Now the public had seen one meeting, one conversation, one envelope, and just enough evidence to suggest the rot ran deeper than anyone imagined. By the time dawn cracked over the eastern seaboard, the media frenzy had reached its boiling point. The Bondi-Diddy saga had transcended the usual celebrity scandal cycle. This wasn't gossip. This was war. And every outlet wanted a piece of the battlefield. Cable news turned the case into 24-hour theater. MSNBC deployed its top legal analysts, drawing courtroom diagrams and timeline graphics on screen. CNN launched a limited series called Power, Silence, and the Truth, complete with dramatic orchestral scoring between segments. Even Fox News, typically indifferent to hip-hop controversies, labeled it a high-profile collision of politics, power, and accountability. Social media, however, had no intention of playing neutral. The hashtags #BondiLeaks and #DiddyTampering were now permanent fixtures on X, formerly Twitter. TikTokers launched deep-dive mini-docs with titles like What Bondi's USB Could Really Contain and The Diddy Files, Everything They Don't Want You to Know. Instagram Reels mashed courtroom sketches with snippets of the leaked surveillance footage, set to ominous trap beats. But the chaos didn't stop with trending hashtags. That morning, Pam Bondi made a surprise appearance on Good Morning America. Flanked by her attorney, she looked calm, focused, and unflinching. The host wasted no time. Ms. Bondi, are you saying that what's unfolding here goes beyond Diddy himself? Bondi nodded slowly. I'm saying the intimidation I've experienced, and the evidence I've seen, suggests this isn't just about one individual trying to suppress testimony. This is about protecting a pattern of behavior, systemic, well-funded, and calculated. Then came the twist. Bondi reached into her bag and held up a silver USB drive. I've already submitted what's on here to federal authorities, she said. But for the public, I want them to know, I didn't just bring words. I brought receipts. That image, Bondi holding the USB like a lit match, went viral instantly. Within minutes, memes were everywhere. A movie poster-style edit titled The USB That Shook the Industry. A courtroom superhero sketch, Bondi, caped, with the USB glowing in her hand. The phrase "she brought receipts" became a t-shirt design within hours. Meanwhile, Diddy's PR team scrambled to regain control of the narrative. A rare televised statement from Diddy himself aired later that afternoon. Filmed inside a neutral, wood-paneled office, he looked solemn. I want to make this clear. I have never tampered with a witness. I have never threatened Ms. Bondi or anyone else. The idea that I would orchestrate something so sinister is not just false, it's offensive to my character, my legacy, and my community. He paused for effect, his eyes locked on the camera. Let the court speak. Let the truth come out. But the statement fell flat. It wasn't enough to compete with the drip feed of leaked material, real-time speculation, and Bondi's bold visibility. Talk shows capitalized on the drama. The View dedicated an entire episode to the case. Dr. Phil hosted an ex-bodyguard who once worked Diddy's private events. Even The Breakfast Club aired a tense, nearly hour-long segment dissecting the implications of witness tampering in black excellence. Then came the bombshell from the Washington Post. In an exclusive op-ed, a former Combs global assistant wrote under the pseudonym Aoi. They claimed to have witnessed the shredding of legal documents in late 2015 and described hearing conversations involving substantial financial settlements tied to NDAs, one of which mentioned Bondi by name. The article stopped short of naming Diddy directly, but the implication was unmistakable. In the background, the Department of Justice remained publicly silent but visibly active. Federal marshals were spotted increasing security at key witness locations. A sealed hearing was held in Washington, D.C., sparking speculation of a potential superseding indictment. Meanwhile, Bondi's team doubled down. That evening, her lawyer Marissa Delgado appeared on Anderson Cooper 360 and stated, Pamela Bondi isn't trying to be famous. She's trying to stay alive. And she's trying to ensure that what happened to her, what nearly happened to others, doesn't disappear into a settlement folder or a backroom deal. Suddenly, the media's tone shifted. This wasn't tabloid drama anymore. It was a referendum on celebrity power and accountability. Legacy newspapers ran features titled, When Fame Meets the Federal Courts, The New Rules of Justice. Diddy,
Bondi, and the battle for the narrative. Why the music industry is holding its breath. Several major outlets released op-eds defending Bondi. Others questioned the timing, motives, and political entanglements. The Atlantic published a scathing editorial warning about celebrity exceptionalism and how wealth had historically shielded powerful figures from legal consequences. But perhaps the most unexpected moment came from The Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon. In his opening monologue, Fallon joked, "Diddy says he's innocent. Bondi says she's got a USB that proves otherwise." At this point, the judge might just ask Alexa who's lying. The joke landed, but so did the implication. Everyone was watching, and no one knew how it would end. As the sun set on yet another day of leaks, broadcasts, editorials, and digital firestorms, a subtle yet chilling update appeared on the Department of Justice's website. A witness in the federal obstruction investigation has entered emergency relocation and is now under full federal protection. Additional threats have been documented. Investigative operations continue. No name, no address, no details. But everyone knew who it was. And everyone knew the war wasn't over. It was just entering its most public, most dangerous phase. The courthouse at 500 Pearl Street in Manhattan had never seen this kind of atmosphere. Even in cases involving mob bosses, tech giants, and former presidents, there hadn't been this level of public fixation. Reporters, camera crews, and onlookers lined the barricades from 5 a.m. onward. By 8 a.m., armed federal marshals began sweeping the perimeter, twice. No phones were allowed inside. No cameras. Just rows of cold, worn wooden benches, and the rising tension of something irreversible. Pam Bondi arrived at 8:42 a.m. in a black SUV escorted by federal agents. Dressed in a navy suit, minimal makeup, and a stern expression, she walked directly into the building without glancing at the flashing cameras. Her only words to reporters were measured. "Today, I speak under oath. Everything else is just noise." Inside, courtroom 12B filled quickly. The judge presiding over the proceedings was Honorable Marlene Givens, known for her no-nonsense demeanor and precise legal mind. No theatrics were tolerated in her court. No delays without reason. Her opening line to the courtroom set the tone. This matter is not about celebrity. It is about truth, protection, and law. Let's proceed. Diddy entered 15 minutes later, flanked by 5 lawyers, 2 personal aides, and at least 1 plainclothes bodyguard. Dressed immaculately in a tailored gray suit and aviator glasses, he exuded calm, but those closest to him later admitted he was more tense than anyone had ever seen him. The prosecution opened by summarizing their case, that Bondi, a key government witness, had been subjected to a sustained effort of intimidation, manipulation, and tampering, allegedly orchestrated or condoned by the defendant and his associates. They referenced the audio recording, the surveillance footage, the handwritten threat note, and the interactions with Nathan Reyes. All entered into evidence. Then, the moment came. "We call Pamela Jo Bondi to the stand." The room stilled. Even the clicking of pens ceased. Bondi stepped forward, took the oath, and adjusted the microphone. Her voice was clear, controlled. She wasted no time. "On March 24th, I received a phone call from an individual I had met only once before. This person asked me, strongly, to reconsider the full details of my testimony related to a 2015 settlement involving Mr. Combs and a group of individuals tied to Combs Global Holdings. I was offered discretion, protection, and, quote, long-term goodwill in exchange for omission." She paused. "I declined." Gasps rippled through the gallery. Bondi then detailed the timeline of events. The encrypted messages she was alerted to by a cybersecurity analyst. The unmarked package found on her doorstep. The man seen tailing her twice in Tampa, later identified as a freelance operative connected to Diddy's former head of security. When asked if she felt threatened, she didn't hesitate. "Yes. Absolutely. I know when I'm being pressured. This wasn't a warning, it was a promise. One that I refused to obey." The defense team objected multiple times, once citing speculation, once hearsay. Judge Givens overruled both. "The witness is providing direct testimony on events she personally experienced," she stated. Then came the bombshell. The prosecution requested permission to play the full, uncut recording of the phone call that had only previously been released in edited form. Givens allowed it. The courtroom filled with silence. Then static. Then voices. "Bondi, I'm not backing off. The law's the law." Male voice. "Then don't be shocked when the law stops protecting you." Givens stopped the audio. The judge looked visibly disturbed. She turned to the defense.
Do you have any rebuttal to the claim this voice belongs to a known associate of your client?
Diddy's lead attorney stammered, then requested a delay to confirm the audio's authenticity. Denied.
Then, Bondi delivered what many would later call the moment that cracked the case.
Your Honor, with your permission, I'd like to submit a second audio file.
This one wasn't released to the public.
She handed a flash drive to the bailiff. The audio played. A different meeting. Same male voice. This time, more careless.
Reyes is handled.
The others won't talk unless she talks. And if she does, we burn it all. Gasps. A pen dropped.
Someone in the gallery whispered, "Oh my God."
Then Bondi dropped a name. The man on the recording is Terrence Doyle,
former logistics chief for Combs Global Holdings.
He was present at the 2015 NDA meeting.
He was also the one who signed the shell transfer that hid the money.
At that, Diddy leaned forward. Just slightly. Enough for his attorney to place a calming hand on his shoulder. The judge called a short recess. The room buzzed with tension. Reporters sprinted outside to begin piecing together headlines. When court resumed, the defense declined to cross-examine Bondi in full. A brief statement was entered instead.
We deny the relevance and admissibility of these recordings and object to the insinuation of criminal intent without formal charge. Judge Givens did not conceal her irritation.
You may object all you like. But in this court, testimony backed by evidence will be heard.
You're welcome to present a rebuttal witness.
They didn't. Bondi exited the courtroom under U.S. Marshal protection. Her expression was unreadable. The judge concluded the day's proceedings with a stern warning. This is no longer about one man. It never was.
This court recognizes that the pursuit of truth may impact powerful institutions.
It does not care. We proceed. As court adjourned, the silence broke like a dam. Reporters flooded the steps, narrating the day's events live. Twitter feeds exploded. Cable news anchors looked stunned.
And somewhere deep within the Department of Justice, final preparations began on what would be described in leaked documents as the coordinated escalation of federal enforcement.
Diddy had lost control of the room. Bondi had owned the moment. And the court was no longer just listening, it was preparing to act. The courtroom had gone quiet. But the rest of the country, maybe even the world, was just beginning to react.
Within 24 hours of Bondi's testimony, a storm of consequences hit with the speed and coordination of a military operation.
By 9 a.m., the Department of Justice released a short but seismic press bulletin.
Effective immediately, the department is initiating a multi-tiered investigation into alleged obstruction, witness tampering, and financial concealment related to testimony provided on June 17 in U.S. District Court.
Further comment is pending. No names were listed. But everyone knew. Diddy's empire began to implode overnight. Brand deals evaporated one after another. Syrup paused all ad campaigns and removed his name from its homepage.
Revolt, the media platform he co-founded, issued a statement distancing itself from any individual under federal scrutiny.
His pending European tour, scheduled to begin in Paris, was postponed indefinitely. Sources close to his team described chaos inside his Star Island estate. Legal advisors were flown in from Los Angeles, New York, and Dubai. Former associates were reportedly lawyering up fast, and Diddy himself was said to be contemplating a press conference but was ultimately advised against it. The final straw came that evening, when the Federal Bureau of Investigation executed a sealed search warrant on a Midtown Manhattan office registered under Combs Holdings. Black SUVs, agents in jackets, sealed boxes, nothing left to interpretation. The footage aired on national news in real time. Then came the hotline.
Pam Bondi, in an unexpected but bold move, announced via her lawyer the creation of a public, federally monitored hotline for whistleblowers and witnesses with knowledge of coercive tactics or concealed financial agreements linked to any of the named or unnamed parties.
Within hours, over 400 tips had been logged. Reporters confirmed the hotline was staffed jointly by members of the DOJ, the IRS Criminal Division, and a specialized unit within the U.S. Marshal Service. One of the first confirmed tips? A former accountant who handled offshore transactions involving Caribbean shell companies tied to Combs Global from 2014 to 2016. Another? A woman who claimed she was pressured to sign a non-disclosure agreement in 2015 by a now-deceased entertainment lawyer mentioned in Bondi's testimony. In response to the growing firestorm,
Diddy's legal team filed a motion requesting Bondi be barred from any further public statements, citing ongoing reputational harm and trial by media. The judge denied the motion. Civil rights groups and transparency advocates now publicly rallied behind Bondi. Her decision to stand up had inspired more than just legal movement, it ignited a cultural one. Talk shows, editorials, and panels began drawing broader connections between her case and long-standing patterns of intimidation within the entertainment industry. The Atlantic published a cover story, The Silence Clause, When Power Meets Fear in American Fame. Time magazine ran Bondi on the cover in a silhouette, USB drive in hand, with the title, The Witness. Meanwhile, whispers began circulating in D.C. that Bondi was being considered for a special oversight role in a new federal task force focused on high-profile intimidation and coercion cases. Nothing confirmed, yet, but the very idea sent the media spinning again. Inside the Department of Justice, escalation was in motion. A grand jury expansion was confirmed. Names were added. Charges broadened. Not just obstruction anymore, but financial crimes, tax evasion, and civil conspiracy. Court documents now hinted that the 2015 settlement wasn't isolated, it was part of a pattern of preemptive silencing spanning years. And the investigation, once focused solely on Diddy, was now branching into the orbit of his business partners, legal enablers, and silent financiers. One sealed filing contained a single ominous line, later leaked to the press. The ecosystem is now under review. As for Diddy, he remained physically absent from the public but digitally present. That night, an Instagram story appeared, just a black background and the words, "Truth always finds a way." Reactions were mixed. Supporters claimed he was being railroaded. Critics called it vague defiance. Memes mocked the melodrama. But one thing was clear, this wasn't just a celebrity's downfall anymore. This was a federal reckoning. Even Bondi's former critics had to acknowledge her impact. At a press conference the following morning, her attorney spoke. Pamela Bondi did what few people with knowledge of this level of power and risk are willing to do. She stood up, under oath, and told the truth. What comes next isn't about her. It's about accountability, across the board. That same day, the Securities and Exchange Commission quietly launched a parallel inquiry into a Combs-affiliated digital currency fund. An executive tied to it had recently scrubbed all social media presence. By week's end, 3 people had entered federal witness protection. One was confirmed to be Nathan Reyes. The other 2 remained unnamed. And then, in a final symbolic gesture, the judge presiding over the case issued an official referral to Congress requesting examination of loopholes in existing NDAs, offshore settlement practices, and the use of private investigators in high-profile legal intimidation. The fallout had become systemic. Pam Bondi, once a quiet, behind-the-scenes legal strategist, had done what no one expected. She shook a pillar of the entertainment world without blinking. And somewhere inside a classified DOJ meeting room, an analyst wrote 4 simple words on a whiteboard. It started with Bondi.